This is NICU Babies Parent Support with Katherine Whitaker, the podcast from Hand to Hold, a national nonprofit that provides free personalized support, resources, and community before, during, and after your baby's NICU stay. My conversations here will focus on education and personal stories with medical and hospital professionals, therapists, counselors, and NICU moms and dads across the country. Whether you're preparing for a NICU stay, you're currently there, or you're months and years past your stay, you belong here. The NICU is hard. We're here to help. I'm your host, Katherine Whitaker, a mom of 6 children, including my very own NICU baby. I am so honored you're here. Hey y'all, it is February, which also means that it is American Heart Month. And there was really no more perfect person that I wanted to talk to than a mom who has a child who has a heart condition. I feel like her experience, her son, and what they've dealt with and what they're currently going through can really be a benefit to each one of y'all. I know that you're going to love this interview. So Kasie Marek is a medical mom trying to figure it all out one day at a time. She's a 2-time childhood cancer survivor who entered the nurse mom world after her firstborn son, Noah, was born with a condition called Hypoplastic Left Heart Syndrome, or known as HLHS. They're now navigating what it's like to do everyday life with him. And Kasie's also trying to figure out how to still be a mom, a wife, and take care of herself. If you love this interview, which I am sure that you will, you can also find her on social media. She's laughing after lemons. And there's a good story on her social media as to why that is. So let's chat. So I'm thrilled today that I have Kasie Marek with me today. I know that some people may know this, but American Heart Month is typically what we celebrate the month of February, but I know that's particularly important to you and your family. You have a little boy who has a condition that some people may or may not have heard of, HLHS. So, Kasie, why don't you tell us a little bit about first we'll start there. What is HLHS?
Yeah, HLHS stands for Hypoplastic Left Heart Syndrome. There's a lot of complexities to it, but to kind of simplify, it is something where it's a condition where the heart, the left side of the heart does not form properly. So it's essentially not working. It is not viable with life. So lots of interventions have to take place in order to live. And so, yeah, our heart has 4 chambers. And so you've got your left side, your right side, and a typical heart would be red and blue, but Noah's, my son, is purple because it's all mixing. And so that is a very simplified version of what hypoplastic left heart is. Typically, when you have one heart anomaly, you've got a couple others too. So in Noah's case, he does have a few other abnormalities, but HLHS is definitely our biggest one.
I think most moms who have spent some time in the NICU, I'd say a great majority of us have had kids who have heart issues. Mine had 2 holes in his heart, not HLS, but there's lots of acronyms. Mine had PDA and VSD.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I guess, holes in your heart, the central, an easy way to describe that. But I mean, I think for HLHS, it's important for people to know, so it's a congenital heart defect, so it's present at birth. So I'm assuming that you found out about Noah's diagnosis before he was born. Is that correct?
I did. I was one of the lucky ones. We found out at 20 weeks pregnant. We were asked at least 4 times that week if we wanted to terminate. And prior to Noah, we had multiple miscarriages. And so I had finally gotten past that 12-week mark, and just felt so confident, like this baby is here to stay. And the last of my worries was he was going to have a heart condition. So after the anatomy scan, my doctor had called me and I just hung up the phone and said, I knew it. I knew something. I was waiting for the ball to drop. And we found out, hypoplastic left heart. It took a few days for us to really get a diagnosis. Lots of technology and fetal echoes and all of those things. But I did find out at 20 weeks, and every other week would have a fetal echo on his heart. And I felt like I would find out more information, more diagnoses. And then ultimately we decided to move to Houston. There are only certain hospitals that can perform these surgeries. They are quite new, starting like in the 80s.
I know, I was actually going to say that. Yeah. So to give people sort of an idea, before 1980, 95% mortality rate of babies who had HLHS. So obviously big strides have been made since then, but really like such a small percentage of babies are born with this, like a little over 1,000 babies a year are born with HLHS. So what Noah has is pretty rare, but they've made some big strides. So did you know, Kasie, like I mean, obviously the doctors are monitoring, looking to see like, are we going to be able to get to a full term baby? And then what? So where were you in that process? Made it to full term or close to full term? And then what happens after he's born?
Yeah, so at 36 weeks, I actually was required to move to Houston to be close to where, he would be having his first surgeries. And they, I think so. Hypoplastic left heart is a syndrome. So you can have a textbook case, which is still really bad, or you can have a really, really severe case where um, you don't qualify for the surgeries and comfort care is the only option. And we knew that that was a possibility too. So at 35 weeks, we moved and we actually had a fetal echo and his function was getting worse. And so we were prepared to not go through the first surgeries, and Noah hopefully would be eligible for a transplant. So at 36 weeks, moved to Houston, had him full term. I was induced at 40 weeks, but had a pretty simple, like straightforward labor, other than having 20 people in the room.
I was going to say, other than the audience that you had, I'm sure. Yes.
Oh, yeah. It was, I mean, seriously, 20 people. And as soon as Noah was born, I only got to hold him for probably 45 seconds. And they took him to a bed right next to me and performed the first procedure in the room for like the next hour. And then he was wheeled off to the cardiac ICU. My husband was able to go with him, and I went into recovery and couldn't see him for probably 6 hours later until I could get up and walk over to the other building. But then after that, we had his first open heart surgery, the Norwood, it's called, at 9 days old. It was a 12-hour open heart surgery. And, he was an 8-pound baby. His heart was the size of a walnut. So just very crazy to think about. And he had some complications. In my mind, the team had prepared us that we would be inpatient from birth to at least 6 months of age until he had his second stage surgery, which is called the Glenn. So in my mind, I was very prepared for that. And we actually only ended up staying in the hospital after the Norwood, his first surgery, for about 50 days. And that just felt like, yay, a miracle. We weren't able to go home, but we were able to go to our apartment across the street for about 5 weeks. And then Noah went into severe heart failure at home with me and turned purple. And I rushed him barefooted across the street to the ER. And we stayed there for about 3 or 4 months in the ICU that time. He had his second open heart surgery called the Glenn and coded. Ended up having to have another open heart surgery, coded again a week later. Lots of intubations, extubations. Everything just seemed to be going wrong with that stay. It just wasn't going to my plan. And I think I had a really hard time with that. And I got really frustrated. And
I think there's a lot of us who have we have a plan, right? Like we talk to the doctors, we hear the prognosis, we read all the things. Like I was reading medical journals, I was reading things that I never thought I was going to read. And so you have this sort of idea of how you can prepare yourself for this roller coaster that you did not sign up for. And then it doesn't go as planned. And that's when that's when it gets really hard, is you have to figure out, okay, so this is our new normal, and this was not the normal that I signed up for. So, so how did you manage that in your marriage? How did you manage that during your hospital stays of the high highs of like big wins, right? Like we get some small wins, but they feel very big. And then we have this big dive of he codes or he goes back in the hospital. How do you guys manage that?
Honestly, I don't have a perfect answer for that. I think in the midst of it, we were just fight or flight. Like I don't think I processed all of that in it. And I that's a regret that I have. I wish that I was taking care of more of my mental health, because after we got home is when it really hit me. When I was sitting at home with this really sick baby who required 24/7 G tube feeds, 40 doses of meds a day. It was COVID. I'm alone. I have no doctors in my house to ask. And my husband's working all day. It was, I had a breakdown. I essentially had like severe postpartum depression. I had PTSD, had all of those things. And it took me a long time to face that. So I can't say that I did anything perfect while we were in the hospital. I don't think I was really prepared. Since then, I'd say my marriage is stronger, because we have hit rock bottom before, and we've figured out, okay, like I know that the way I deal with all of this is very different than what my husband deals with. And I had to really learn that during, these 8 months of being in the ICU with Noah. I also learned that we each have our strong points of like what role we take. Like for me, I am the people pleaser. I want to I want to be not friends, but I want to be like, just all the doctors. Like I want to talk to them. And, I don't know.
I'd call that
I
a
was,
Texan, like your hospitality. You're like, you want everyone to feel comfortable in the room, want everyone to talk to each other. I get it. Like, because it's one thing that you can control. You can
I can
keep
control.
it together.
And unfortunately, I feel like my son's life is literally in the palm of their hands. And so, um, but my husband is very business like, and talks to all of these people in a very assertive, way. And I'm like, okay, like cut. So I think just knowing though, but sometimes that's needed. I think we had a lot of bumps in the road with Noah's care and mistakes that happened. That for me to express my concern, I get very emotional, and Brandon's very direct and not emotional about it. And like, okay, yeah, no, we need to come up with a plan to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So a lot like letting him know, okay, you got to take care of this conversation because I can't, like, I'm not, you're better at it than me. And just accepting that um,
That's a
is
good
is
reminder
really
that people can
helpful.
have good communication, right? Like you have to know what your strengths and have the wherewithal to know, like, I can handle this and I can't handle this.
Right.
And knowing that your partner is going to pick up the slack where you can't. I think that's a good reminder to everybody that you don't have to have it figured out all the time, but you have to know what you can and can't do and when you need to call in reinforcement. So remind me, okay,
Yeah.
so Noah's born what year?
2019.
2019. And
So,
he is, so
mhm.
walk us through like where he is now. It's
Yeah.
2023. So walk us through sort of where he
Yeah.
is and that journey and where y'all are as a family.
So we brought Noah home to Austin for the very first time, March 1st of 2020, right before COVID. So it was a very interesting time. And then, of course, Noah was very sick. He was very fragile at that time. He required a lot of medical attention. And it was just not the way I had pictured in my head that I was going to bring home, even knowing his illness, like he won't even eat by mouth. And I think it was accepting, like, this is our normal, like, this is how it is right now. And just accepting that. But it took us a long time, and I've gotten used to it now. It's my new normal. And so he's had a really good past few years, still full G-tube fed, but we have really struggled with him gaining weight. His heart function is severely depressed. He has a very severe tricuspid valve leak. So where we should be is preparing him to have the third stage surgery, which is called the Fontan. So textbook HLHS kids would have the Norwood at the first week of life. Otherwise, typically kids with HLHS pass away within that first week. So then you have the Norwood, the Glen, which is at 3 to 6 months of age. Noah's had that. And then at between 2 to 5, you have the Fontan. And your body tells you when you're ready for that. By oxygen saturations, Noah's sats are, 78 at best.
And they should be. So for people who aren't aware, like if they're 78, what should they be?
100 is for a normal, functioning. Yeah. 98 to 100. So Noah's blue. But last May, we took Noah in for a heart cath, and they let us know that Noah is no longer eligible for the Fontan. He is also not a candidate for a Berlin heart, which is if he gets too sick, to bridge the gap from too sick to transplant. So our only option now is a heart transplant. And it's really, there's not just hearts floating around. So the wait is very long, and we have been on the wait list since last July, so for 8 months. And at this point, the team has told us he will not make it if we allow him to wait at home for a heart. So, and he's continuing to get more sick. He's vomiting a lot. He cannot tolerate his feeds because when you're in heart failure, your gut is typically the first thing to go. The perfusion is very poor. So we are being admitted February 16th, and Noah will start a heart failure medication via IV and also be put on IV nutrition. And then we will start the wait inpatient. And that wait is 4 to 6 months typically, but it can be 8 months plus. And we just don't know how much longer he can sustain his current heart.
NICU Babies Parent Support is a podcast produced by Hand to Hold, a national nonprofit. But we're more than simply a podcast. Be sure to download our app, join one of our support groups, or find one-to-one support. Enjoy counseling, find loss and bereavement support, participate in our peer-to-peer mentor program, or check out our news, articles, and family stories on our website at handtohold.org. And all of that is at no cost to you. Hand to Hold's mission is to provide personalized support before, during, and after a NICU stay to help ensure that all NICU families thrive. I think some people may hear that, Kasie, and for two things. One is that you have to realize when someone gets a transplant, that means that someone else doesn't live, so you're receiving their heart. So that's the first thing. And then I think some people may hear your story and say, oh, praise God, Noah's getting a heart. He's going to go on and live this big, beautiful life for the next 80 years. But maybe walk us through what transplant really looks like for Noah.
Yeah. Transplant there's so much more to it than I think people understand. And I mean, I wouldn't have known this unless I walked through it, right? Like even the evaluation process, we go through finances to make sure we're financially able to take care of this heart. We go through the psychiatrist evaluation, both my husband and I, and that is to make sure we are qualified to, take care of this special gift. Once Noah gets a heart, obviously he has to recover from this massive open heart surgery, but rejection is one of the largest or the highest risk of fatality after a transplant. But then you have coronary artery disease. He will be placed on anti-rejection meds for the rest of his life. So any illnesses, bacteria infections, even simple things as like eating too many cuties or grapefruits. He is not able to do it for the rest of his life anymore. Just very silly things like that. Swimming in the lake. Yeah, there's a long list of things. And typically in kids that have had a more complicated medical, medical issues, had a more complicated journey, the outcomes of transplant are worse. So, they have, told us the typical statistics, which is 2 to 9 years life expectancy after transplant. It could be 15 years, but, he's only 3.5 right now. So I in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, 9 years, he'll only be, 11 or 12 until he needs another transplant if we have that opportunity again. So yeah, it's not a cure, and it can be frustrating, to hear the responses from other people, like, oh yeah, like my grandfather got a transplant at 70 and he lived on until he was 85. I'm like, oh, it's just not the same. So really
So
working
Kasie,
through that
how do
and
you,
trying, yeah.
Kasie, how do you reconcile this beautiful kid that you have living in your home who you adore and love and the reality of what your family faces? I guess my first question to you is, one, how do you reconcile that? And secondly, how are you taking care of yourself?
Um, yeah, I mean, I remember before I had Noah thinking, if I just have 24 hours with him, I will be so thankful. I will be so thankful for that. And here we are 3.5 years later, and it's been a road, but we've had 3.5 years with him, and he is the funniest kid. He is very witty, and am very scared sometimes of what's going to come out of his mouth. But, nothing will prepare me for that day. And I know that the likelihood of me outliving him is high. And that's very unfair. And I've had a lot of anger, had a lot of anger, I've had a lot of questions about why would God do this to us? But I think also about, what if Noah was born into a family that lived somewhere else, that couldn't have gotten them to a hospital, that can properly, do these surgeries, or yeah, I try to think about all of those things. I'm not going to tell you every day I'm super positive. I cry a
I
lot,
would say
but
you were a
I
liar
just,
if you told me that. I would say you are not being truthful because you're a mom who loves your kids. I mean, at the end of the
yeah,
day,
yeah, I mean, I think thank God we live in a wonderful neighborhood. We have made beautiful friends that Noah has brought into our life, and they have kept us going. And yeah, just seeing that has been so beautiful, and knowing like Noah has made an impact so many people. How I'm taking care of myself. I have really tried to prepare for this year. I've known 2023, we've known since last year this was likely going to be the year, like all the stuff was going to happen, and we don't know what's going to happen. In my head, in the perfect scenario, I'd be like, okay, we're going to get admitted, and in July Noah's going to get his miracle heart. But I need to stop that, because we all know how that works out for us. So just trying to mentally prepare myself for everything that the ICU brings, making schedules, trying to be organized, lots of therapy. And you know what? I also have started anxiety meds. That's something that I just feel like it's just temporary. My husband and I, we attend church, but we've unfortunately had to stop going in person because of illnesses and trying to keep Noah safe. if he gets a virus, we are unable to accept a heart. So it is very important we keep him safe. So everybody was pulled out of school, and I had to quit my job, and we've been really hunkered down. But I try to be open with my husband about everything, and we try to talk about it all.
I think those are all good reminders for all of us. I mean, you have good community, you know what your limits are as a mom, and you're asking for help, which I think is maybe the thing that most NICU moms, I don't know if we learn it early or later, but I think we all eventually learn, like, I thought I was Superwoman, but clearly I've left my cape somewhere else, and I'm going to have someone pitch in and help me. So I'm grateful to hear that you are taking care of all those things and that you're keeping communication open with your husband. I just, I could talk to you forever. Go ahead. No, keep going.
I have no time restraint, but you might. But one thing I wanted to mention, so I had cancer as I was 13. But I've worked with a lot of kids with cancer and their moms and, their families. And I've loved helping other people. And it's so funny because now it's the other way around, right? And I feel like we've needed help for so long because all of Noah's life has been really difficult. And here we're going into the hospital, and I've been like, oh, but it's so bad to accept help. How many times can my neighborhood do a meal train for us?
As many times as needed. That's the answer.
So I've really sat down and I've written a list for everybody on how can I help? And here's the ways that I would appreciate help. I made an Amazon list for Noah to post on social media because there's so many people. How can we help from afar? And so that Amazon list has, people can purchase things for Noah from that. And that's really helped me because I know how it feels to want to help somebody. And I'm like, just tell me what I can do to help you. And so my typical response when someone's like, how can we help your family? I'll just, pray and we're good. Thank you. But in reality, there are always things that we need going through this challenging time.
I mean, there are certain things that only you and your husband and Noah can do. And then there are lots of other things that other people can do. So knowing what can I do and what can only the mom do, and then I'm going to let everybody else pick up. And that is a very humbling thing to accept with graciousness, accept people's help. I always remind people, I'm like, let people help because it's how they love you. Don't deny someone the opportunity to love your family. So I think it's great that you put all those things together. Kasie, if you had to give a mom listening to this, maybe her son or daughter doesn't have your specific diagnosis of HLHS, but has a child with a heart condition, what would your one piece of advice be to her?
I think truly taking it day by day. I mean, it's easier said than done, but really trying to not look too far into the future, day by day. And sometimes when we're in the ICU, it's moment by moment, and just really like dealing with this moment right now. I'm not going to think about the next one. Let's think about this moment right now is my biggest piece of advice. Because when we have a plan in our head and it doesn't go as expected, it's even more devastating, So truly just moment by moment, day by day, second by second, whatever that time frame looks like for them. So,
Kasie, thank you for the time of visiting with me. I know that y'all are preparing for a life-changing hospital stay for your family. So know that we totally, we've been in that NICU, ICU, immediate care, all the places in the hospital. And just know that some of us see your heart a little bit deeper than others. So I pray that it gives you guys some more time as a family.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I knew y'all were going to love Kasie and her story, and also hearing about Noah and HLHS. You know, my favorite part of doing the podcast is maybe giving you a little bit of what I gleaned from our interviews, sort of some take-home points that I think are worth pondering or worth sitting with, and maybe thinking about and how you can apply those to your own situation, no matter what diagnosis your kiddo has, no matter where you find yourself, where you're currently in the NICU, about to go in the NICU, or many years past. There were a couple of things that Kasie said, I think, that really resonated with me. The first one was, first of all, I want to be organized like her. I mean, I'm pretty organized, but I was pretty impressed with some of the things that she said. But I think the thing that I love the most is that she made a list for people that she knew, like, hey, these are the things that I can do, but here's the Amazon list. Here's the list in the house of things that need to be done. I think sometimes we are unwilling, unable. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think we are reluctant to ask people to help us because we are afraid that maybe that might indicate to people, hey, I don't have it all together. Hey, this is really hard. And guess what? Things are really hard sometimes. And I was really, really thankful that she decided to share vulnerably. These are the things that I can do, and these are the things that I need help with. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I don't know if I can ask for help. I don't know if I can ask someone to mow my yard or go to the grocery store. The answer is yes. Yes, you can let people love you. So I loved that she said that. Another thing that I think was really important as we sort of continue, and I think it will be a recurring theme no matter what guest I have, is our importance and our desire to place mental health. And she even mentioned in their PTSD some things that she was doing, saying, hey, I recognize that I can't do that, but also understanding that you're not required to do that. It's okay for you to admit that your superhero cape is currently at the cleaners and you may never get it back, but that you do what you can do in that moment and it will be enough. And then you will do the next thing and the next moment, and that also will be enough. So I hope those two little nuggets that she shared with you, certainly the whole interview is fantastic, but those were my two big takeaways. So I will see y'all next week. Thanks, y'all, for listening to NICU Babies Parent Support. Every parent and every experience is welcome here. If you're a NICU parent in need of support, please download our app. You can find it in the Apple Store or on Google Play, Hand to Hold. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't be shy, y'all. You can share it, you can subscribe, and most certainly, please review it. We would love your reviews. It's how we reach more NICU parents. I'll see y'all next time.